everybody. This is Dr. Tabitha here, the African PhD Spotlight. And today on the Spotlight, we have a special guest, Dr. Melissa. She is a postdoc fellow in information systems at the University of Southampton. She brings a wealth of experience from academia and industry. Welcome to the Spotlight, Dr. Melissa.
Thank you very much, Tabitha, for having me. I'm excited about this program.
Okay, so Melissa, first question is, tell us a little bit about your PhD journey. What did you do to this research topic? What informed your decision to pursue a PhD in information systems?
Okay, so a bit of background. I worked in industry, which is a fintech industry, for about 16 years. I worked in various roles within the industry, particularly. However, over time, I realized that there was a strategic move to have a PhD because a lot of work I did surrounded policy, involved, translating policy into the way information systems are driven and designed and deployed. Because the company I worked for was the National Payment Systems Infrastructure Provider. And so we really did have a policy component to the work we did for fintech. And PhD for me represented, evidence that I would understand policy properly. And so that was the initial decision, like it was a strategic decision. However, in 2019, when we had the COVID, I was home a lot and I realized that my children did much better academically in terms of their health. And it really was because I was home quite a lot. I was also less stressed in terms of combining work, home, and schooling at the same time. And so I realized that I might consider switching, this PhD into an academic one, so that when I'm done, it becomes, a way for me to switch from industry, which is very time consuming, to academia, which is a lot more flexible, not less time consuming, but a lot more flexible. So that was a motivation. So the research topic really is driven from my experience in industry. It's things I have seen on the ground when we struggle to deploy information systems across all spheres, not just among unbanked populations, even within banked populations, with people you would consider experts. You would think that it should be easy for them to adopt certain kinds of information systems, but it's not. And so a lot of my work in my PhD was on fintech and was trying to understand fintech holistically as an industry, not as different platform providers or as different technologies. No, my PhD looked at the fintech industry and tried to reframe it as an industry and not as a phenomenon.
Good. Right. If you would like to, if you may, we would like you to explain your research, your PhD, to someone who is non-academic, in layman's language. What was your research about? Tell us the story. What was the problem you're trying to solve to someone who's not, like, let's say, a layman in the village who wants to understand what your work was tackling? How would you explain that?
All right. So I would say that we see fintech as the newbie, okay? Or this is a new kid on the block, here today, gone tomorrow. We see it as no big deal. And I'm speaking to as far back as 2015, 2014, when fintech was not so new, but had taken shape. And for many of us, particularly from Africa, this would be connotations of mobile money. For those in Kenya, they're well ahead of us. But I think that we still saw it as, something that's helping us become banked, not as an industry. So if you're asked to talk about, do you have a bank account? At the time, most people are likely to say no. I don't have an account. I don't have a bank account. But if you ask a person, apart from cash, how else do you transact? The person, so I have mobile money. Well, then you do have a bank account. You understand? So it was just that thinking that, no, we need to see the space as what it is, as separate from banking, and within its own right, having certain kinds of enablement, to put it fairly. And I felt that that was very important, particularly for policy decision making, for the way we design information systems, because even at the national level, again, speaking to the organization I worked with at the time, the framing was that when you design national payment platforms, you're designing them for banks. And then maybe fintech could latch on later down the line. But then we realized that fintech represents a large group of people who otherwise would not have financial services. And so they cannot just buy standards or a byproduct of, technology becoming savvy. They are an important component. So there was a need for us to see them for what they are. And to do that, we had to look at them separately. And that's what my PhD did, was to look at them separately. How are they structured? Who are those who make up fintech? What's the profession? What are their policies? What are their normative activities? What are the associations they have? Why are they even different? Yes, they help us spend money, but why are they different? Why do they do it with technology? Why don't they do it the way banks do it? And the result was that they are an industry of their own. They have their own structures. They have their own way of life. And then in understanding that, then we can design things that are tailored to them, and to a large extent tailored to a lot of people who are otherwise unable to have banking services.
Yes, that's so correct. Because just to relate a little bit about the research I do in Kenya, for the women who sell in the open air marketplaces, that's their form of transactions. But they get mobile loans, easy to access, because they don't have, those procedural collateral security requirements as traditional banks would do. But now when they fail to pay the money and the interest are skyrocketing, they have nowhere to report that to. They feel there was no proper regulation until a couple of years back. So that was a very timely topic, and thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Melissa, now leads us to the third question about your challenges as you are doing your PhD journey. What was your biggest challenge? Was there a moment where you felt like quitting?
So I'll start with the way I went into the PhD, very high flying. I had finished my master's, I had a distinction, so I was really feeling good about myself. And I had this fantastic idea that it was going to be as smooth sailing as the master's. I thought it was going to be teaching, there'll be so much hand holding. Nope.
Yeah.
The biggest shock was the level of independence that it takes to do a PhD. It was very different. Other challenge was understanding it as an academic exercise. You see, I have strong industry understanding. And so that sort of overshadowed my ability to absorb what it meant to, for instance, do a theoretical framing, what it meant to sort of write a methodological section. And I really struggled with, particularly theoretical, finding a theory. It was a big challenge. I was drowning every day. I was quitting literally every day, questioning, okay, so why are you doing this? I think what was worse was the fact that I was actually paying in pounds. And if you're in Africa, the exchange rate is going. So I'm like, really? Really? Do you need to be changing all the C's into pounds? Then on the personal level was being a mom and a wife. That's also difficult because I worked full time. And so my PhD wasn't done full time. It was done part time by distance. And I thank University of Reading for giving me that. But it's also a very difficult way of doing PhD because you are distracted. You have so many commitments. You carry on life as though you don't have this big project you're working on, and PhD is a big project. And so for 6 years I had to make time to do this PhD and not to break down and quitting and reassuring myself that you've already spent so much, you've already written so much, you've already collected this data, just try and finish, I had a fantastic supervisor. I think people point to it and the importance of having a good supervisor and a good support system. And you would only appreciate that when you really do your PhD. Because I did have one who at a point in time was like, I need to hold this girl's hand and show her the way because she's not only blind, she's also lost. And so that helped. I think the other thing was the fact that I communicated to my family as well, especially my kids, because they were much younger at the time I started. Because when I'm frustrated, naturally you want to deflect on someone. So I got to telling them, oh, mommy is stressed out. Mommy doesn't understand her schoolwork. Mommy has been trying to write this for a week now, for 2 weeks now, and mommy is confused. And so if you could give me some space, give me an hour or two alone upstairs or in the bedroom. When I'm done, I'll come out. And they understood over time. I thought they didn't initially, but they did. And so that support system helped. But did I want to quit all the time? All the time. Yes.
Wow. but you've already shared. It's good to share, the strategies you used, and being honest and vulnerable with your family, even with your children, for them to know that this is a huge, mental exercise that mommy needs to figure out. So yeah, thanks a lot for sharing that. Now, on to the positive. What was your biggest highlight? What was the proud moment or a joyful moment in your PhD, and someone who inspired you or supported you? Of course, you've mentioned the supervisors, but any other?
Yes. So I think one of the biggest was publishing 2 papers. I think until I underestimated that, I valued it. It helped me realize that I had completed 2 tasks. When you have a huge task and it feels like you're not finishing, but then you do 2 small tasks within this big task and they come out well, then you're like, okay, I've been able to finish something. It gave me that feeling. And so, yes, working with a team to sort of work on 2 papers that were published in very high impact journals were my highlights. People who helped me along the journey were 2 friends that I worked with, who were very willing for me to tap into their understanding and expertise, because there are certain times where you just hit a writer's block. Your brain just goes dead. And sometimes I write and I'm like, oh, this whole page or 2 pages is trash. I think it's trash, but I'm struggling to sort of reconstruct it. So then I would mention Eunice Asantwa, Cindy and Jennifer Kwaku. They both work in Ghana and Gibbs. What I've done, or I did a few times, was to write and give it to them. I'm like, okay, you know what? Can you let me tell you what I'm trying to say in this chapter? And then proofread it and point out how I can improve it. And they were happy to do it many times. And so they were the ones I could tap into. I also realized that my social network came through for me. You work in an industry. I joined when I was 25, 26, undergrad. I really hadn't realized how strong that social network was within the environment I worked in, the industry. It was when I was doing my PhD. The number of people and organizations willing to open their doors to me I'm a very short notice to come and do data collection, to go back so many times, to ask for clarification, to ask for those, a particular senior director in the Bank of Ghana, who at a point I was like, Melissa, type this. And he dictated, his interpretation of a certain policy that I was struggling with. It was like, just type this. And when I typed it, I was like, oh, this is what
Makes
it meant.
sense.
And then I could fit it into my work. For someone to do that for you, it's not very common. So my social network really came through for me. And I really thank the Ghanaian industry, the fintech industry for coming through for me. Willing to allow me to collect data, willing to speak to me, willing to proofread my work for free. I appreciate that greatly. Yes.
Wow. That's a strong support right there that every PhD students need to have. Right. Now, on to the last question. The advice that you can give to aspiring African scholars, people who are on the fence, who are trying to get into the PhD, but they just don't know how or where to start, and something that you wish more people would know now that you're on the other side of the tunnel.
So the first thing is that, in Africa, the name doctor, it sounds really good. It's a lot of work.
It's legit status.
It's such an elite word. So I think we are very dazzled by it. And often it's that and that excitement about the name and the prestige that comes with it that drives people to want to do a PhD. But I need us to understand that it's a lot of work. You are actually, unless you don't see the value of the output, but it is a lot of work. So first of all, please understand it's a lot of work. So if you're a PhD student and you're overwhelmed, you're in the right place. It is very normal to feel overwhelmed. If you're on the fence and you're thinking of doing a PhD, please be aware that it's a lot of work. Okay. My advice is that don't isolate yourself in both cases. So if you've not started your PhD, really don't isolate yourself. Begin to build your social network if you don't have them. Begin to find interest in the field you think you want to do your PhD in. If you're a doctor, a nurse, you're in the banking sector, whatever sector you find yourself, that is the best place to do your PhD. So begin to build that social network. Begin to be curious, ask questions, have conversations. The PhD topic, You don't even need to have a topic. You just need to have an area. You need to find something that bothers you, within our community. Oh, for instance, like you mentioned, women taking micro loans and struggling to pay the interest rate. Talk to them. Why did you take the loan in the first place? Why are you struggling? Were you not aware of the terms and conditions? Speak to someone on the supply side. Begin to do that legwork even before you put in that PhD proposal. Because for me, I had a strong idea of what I wanted to solve. And so that was not a challenge. It was just, how to interpret that was a challenge. But if you don't know what you're trying to solve and you're trying to interpret it, that's double trouble. So understand that. So this time I'm speaking to those who haven't started. Build your network. Truly understand the problem without the PhD starting. As a person, why is this even a problem? Is it such a problem? Speak to a few people. Sometimes it's a problem to you, but it's not such a problem to everyone. And this translates into a PhD where, for instance, after a year or two, you can't find data to support your problem, or your problem is no longer a problem. It's been solved by one big policy intervention and it no longer exists. So you need to be very sure that this is a big problem you want to solve. Now speak to those who are in it. Ask for help. Okay. Talk to people. Even as a postdoc, I attend a lot of programs that are not even my business. I'll call them not my business. You'd find small events, half a day workshop on writing retreats, and I go. You are writing a workshop just listening to someone, and I go. Not because it's just going to find information, but sometimes just to say hello to someone. To make a friend, sometimes just over coffee, over the snack break. Oh, hello. Oh, how are you? Oh, what department are you in? What are you doing? Just to talk to someone. And those are the people you go to just to find problems, who also point you to where the solution is. Oh, I can help you with data interpretation. Oh, I can help you, work out this tool. Sometimes a tool as simple as Microsoft Word can traumatize you. I mean, if you've tried to, for instance, create a flow chart and you're going to copy it and make it a static image within your PhD document, that can, it's not, and it's Word. It's really Microsoft Word. But here it is, you've created these nice boxes, you've connected them, and you want them to be an image. That learning process alone can take you 2 weeks. But imagine if you connected someone. Remember that you made a friend at this event, you send an email to say, do you know how to do this? Have you done this in your work? And the person says, oh yeah, I can help you. So it's just these small things that you need someone to help you. So please, I'm not going to say, oh, read more, read a lot. No, that social network is really valuable. The last is small steps, but everyday steps. No matter what I did, at least I did some reading. Even if it is for 10 minutes, I did some reading or some writing. Sometimes I know what I'm writing is not making any sense, and I'm just dumping. So I had a lot of scrap paper on this like scrap Word document with very odd names, www, because I'm not going to use it. But a thought came and I wrote it. And that's something, you give yourself credit for that. Sometimes you feel that, okay, I'm going to do my PhD work 3 days in a week or 4 days a week so I can rest. And then you're not able to finish and you're guilting yourself throughout the days you're resting. Small steps. It doesn't have to be a nice big office. Small steps. Okay, there are many times when I'm actually lying on the bed with my kids, my laptop is on my chest and I'm typing and I'm talking to them at the same time. You understand? Or I'm reading an article and I'm highlighting them, and it's not in a structured professional environment, but I'm doing the work all this. And sometimes in the kitchen, in between cooking, and you're writing. Sometimes it's even speech to text. I've taken my phone and I've dictated my thoughts as a recording. And
I did that all the time.
I can't find my laptop or a pen and paper.
Or you'll forget.
So I do that. Yes. Or you'll driving and forget. You'll forget.
Yes.
So it's we are all doing this all things. Okay. It's not a structured. I have to be in an office or on campus, to do the work. You could be in traffic and you could dictate and you're doing the work and it's fine. Okay, so however you do it, it's small steps, but it should be consistent. But I want to assure you that at the end of the day, when you wear that gown, in Ghana call it akapi, and you walk up we walk up the aisle and your name is mentioned
and
with the
floppy
doctor.
hat.
Ooh, that feels really good, and so please push through and try to get to the end. You would love it. If you've not joined it, please join it. It's a long, tedious process, but the reward is fantastic. Yes.
Exactly. Wow. Thank you so much, Dr. Melissa, for sharing your experience, how your motivation. What I'm learning from this few minutes of catching up is that your PhD was problem driven. And that's actually what helped you. Apart from the passion, the knowledge industry, you actually wanted your knowledge to bring a transformative change in the fintech industry. So your PhD was problem driven, and that's the best way to start. You've highlighted some of the struggles. Quitting every day is commonplace for
Yes.
every PhD student. If you've never questioned your existence and your reason for starting a PhD when you're doing a PhD, you're a good student. But
Very.
it's very rare.
Yeah.
And then you've also shared with us your highlights, your proud moments. Congratulations for publishing during your PhD. Most of ours I didn't do. Now is when I'm just trying to get around my publications. But well done you for that. And thank you so much for your piece of advice to those who are currently in it and those who are on the fence trying to do it. So thank you so much for sharing with us your time and your experience and your PhD journey. And yeah, big shout out to all your social networks in Ghana. And thank you so much for allowing us to spotlight you.
Thank you so much, Tabitha, for giving me this opportunity. And I hope many people are inspired. Thank you, Dr.
Yes.
Tabitha. Thank you very much.